Hey guys, welcome back to another Juicy Bits Daily video. Today's the final video in our little week-long series about the history of the internet. I hope if you celebrate, you had a great Christmas yesterday. We are still here on location at Hutchinson Island. Excuse the hair, I was swimming in the ocean this morning. It's a beautiful day here, as you can see. But we got to keep the video series, so there's no rest. All right, in today's final video about the video series, about the internet series, I want to talk about how the idea for the internet was conceived and actually how it came about. So if you remember from the first video in the series, I explained the difference between the internet and the World Wide Web. The World Wide Web is really the network of websites that click and link to each other. But the internet is actually much bigger. It's basically the network of networks. It's the pipeline that the data travels on to get from your smartphone or your laptop all the way to somebody else that you're trying to connect with on the other side of the world, or to the web server that's hosting the website that you want to see. So today we take it for granted. It just seems like such an obvious idea that all of the computers and all of the information that's available in the world would be networked and connected to each other. But this was a really radical concept. And so before any of this ever existed, there was a government agency which is really responsible for creating the internet as we know it today. And it was called ARPA, which later was referred to as DARPA, and that stands for the Advanced Research Projects Agency. And in 1962, a very forward-looking visionary named Joseph Karl Robnet Licklider, who was basically referred to as Lick within the community, penned a series of memos that he sent out to the ARPANET community. And in these memos, he basically talked about his vision for a global computer network. Now, at the time, this was so radical because computers were really only thought of as glorified calculators. You would put a problem in, it would compute something, and it would give it back to you. So at this point, computers were not used for creating things or for storing information, and they certainly weren't used for anything like we use them today in terms of an internet and websites and basically communicating with each other one-on-one or one-to-many or many-to-many. And so in this series of articles, he basically laid out, or memos, he laid out his idea that all of the networks could be combined and what that would do, how that would catapult the use of computers and make them a more powerful network. So these ideas were talked about for a long time. The US government got involved and they saw that there was military applications if they could communicate with each other in a large-scale world war. And so these ideas continued to progress, but it wasn't until 1969 that what we refer to as the internet today actually came online. And the very beginning of the internet was, of course, simply two networks joined together, and by the end of 1969, there were 4 universities on the west coast of the United States that were all networked together. And ARPA decided to let these universities basically share resources and transfer information back and forth, and from there, the idea exploded. Each year going forward since 1969, more and more networks were joining the internet. And as we know it today, you pretty much don't have a network anywhere, even in your home, without it being connected to the internet. We just simply take it for granted. So what I want to really explain to you guys and stress here is that when you think of the internet, there was no one central plan from the beginning. This thing has organically grown and turned into what we use today. There are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of networks, in fact, millions of networks when you think about the home networks included, that are simply linked together. And so there's no, one predetermined route when you type in a web address in your computer and you retrieve, let's say, a web page from Amazon.com. You're simply bouncing through, just this unbelievable amount of computers and pipelines and routers and networks, and just like that, in a second, the data is going from your machine or your phone to the web server and right back to you again. It's just absolutely phenomenal. And on top of that, there are all these organizations that have popped up to make it easier. So when you think about domain names like Amazon.com, there is a central organization who basically manages all of that, just like there are the same things for how you access web servers, the standards for security. All of these things have basically been just created by individuals and organizations, some for profit and some just on a research basis. And it's just over 50 years, humanity has developed this amazing network that has changed the way we live. forever and just completely, what I think, given us a leapfrog forward in terms of information and capability. And so I know personally, I wouldn't have the business that I have or the lifestyle and the livelihood that I have if it wasn't for the internet. So, I know what it's done for me, and there's no shortage of case studies and press out there about what, this global availability of information is going to do for the impoverished nations and for people all over the world. So, hope you've enjoyed this series. I think it's been fantastic. I've learned a lot more about the history of the internet, and I hope you have too. See you again tomorrow.